I was not a super math kind of guy growing up until I was in college and I had to take some kind of math or science class. And since most of the science choices were science classes designed to be taken by people who didn't want to do math and science, I found this insulting to my intelligence. And so I took math classes because I was like, look, I'm going to take a real class as long as I have to take this class. And in those math classes, in one of them in particular, called, I think, finite math, I learned about this idea of permutations, which is how many different ways you can put different things together. And at the same time, I was taking these classes with this super hard-assed improvisation teacher, this fantastic musician, tenor saxophone player, composer named Bill Barron. And in the improvisation class, we were working on, he'd say, how many different ways can you get from the root to the third? And you'd have to we just fill up notebooks with all these possibilities, right? And then practice them and find the good ones and throw away the bad ones. And it was really interesting. And so I stumbled on this idea between those two classes, this idea that if there's something you're trying to do that goes by quickly, where you're trying to remember a lot of stuff, that instead of trying to remember long licks, long strings of notes, that if you can think of it in terms of little packets of information, like short phrases, if you can remember a few short phrases, but have a lot of different ways to put them together, you don't have to memorize long licks. You just have to get the little phrases and have a way to practice and spit back the combinations, right? So in that opening example, I just had 4 one-measure licks, and I was just kind of starting to go through the different combinations to see what kind of licks I could make out of them. So that's the idea I'm just going to lay out here briefly. This is something that I'm going to be talking about in more depth this coming weekend, October 15th. I'll be doing a workshop on how to start improvising if you play fingerstyle blues. And one of the key things we'll talk about is this idea of how to remember what you're going to play by using this idea of having short phrases and lots of ways to put them together. So if you want to learn more about the workshop, there's information. There's a link down below. There's a link on screen. You can click on that and check it out. If you're already a member of my Fingerstyle 5 membership, the workshop is part of the membership. So another thing you could do is join the membership and the workshop will be included. So anyway, more information on that down below. In the meantime, let's get started. I'll show you how these permutations work. All right, so here are the 4 licks that I'm playing. And I'm playing E blues licks over a steady bass. And so the first one is basically just playing around the root over to the flat third, fourth, third, root, flat 7, and root. And the next one starts with a slide from the 4th up to the flat 5, and then a pull off to the flat 3rd again, and then root to flat 7 and back. So the 3rd one is a slide up to the 5th. So 5th, flat 7, back to the 5th, and then the root, 5th, flat 7, and root. You notice they're all basically the same rhythmically. They're just a flow of 8th notes that basically fills a measure. Maybe they start a half a beat before the measure or a half a beat after the measure starts. But that's the idea. And then finally, and so this one is starting with a bit of a quarter step bend on the flat 3rd, and then down to the root, and then to the 5th, 4 to 3, root. So 4 licks in all. And then what I'm doing is I'm just saying, okay, I'm going to call the first lick A. The next lick I'm going to call B. The 3rd lick I'll call C. You can see where this is going. And then finally lick D. Now here's where the mathy part comes in. We're going to basically play the first lick, lick A, and then answer it with lick B. And then we'll try lick A and answer it with lick C, and finally lick A and answer it with lick D. So we'll get these 3 longer licks, but we don't have to memorize anything but the 4 licks we've started with. So here's lick A to lick B. And now here's A to C. And finally A to D. So 3 licks, longer phrases made out of these short bits. And we could also start with a different lick. Like let's say we started with lick D. Now we want to try to answer lick D with lick A, answer lick D with lick B, and answer lick D with lick C. So there's D to A, and then answering with B, and finally so we get a whole different feel and a whole different set of licks. And there's 2 more we could do, right? We could start with C and we could start with B. Now, once you've got these longer licks, the great thing is those longer licks are built out of smaller licks. So we can go back to, say, lick A. And there's this basic kind of call and response structure that happens throughout the blues where you can take a lick and you can repeat it, and then you can repeat it with a longer version of itself, right? So that would basically mean playing lick A and then repeating lick A and then playing lick A into, I don't know, lick D. So repeated. And finally, and it makes a little statement. You could even create more variation. You could play the first lick, then you could play a different lick as an answer to that, go back to the first lick, and then play the longer version, right? So let's play lick A, and then maybe lick B, and then back to A, to D, and just giving them like names, like for now, just calling them licks A through D, it just gives you a little handle, like something you can like pick up the lick and carry it around and put it where you want to put it. So let's see what that sounds like in time. So we're gonna have lick A, lick B, and then licks A to D. 1, 2, 3, and... Gets us a little smoother. Right? And then, you've got this space in between the licks, so you put in a little bit of, that can have its own kind of call and response, just maybe some double stops. Right? Just 2nd fret on the 3rd and 2nd string to the open 3rd and 2nd string. Maybe kick it off with the root. 2, 3, and 4, and. So. Just to have something in that space at the end that kind of answers the whole thing, puts a little button on the whole experience, right? So that's a way that you can start with just a few simple licks, and not only can you organize them in a way that makes it easier to practice them and easier to remember them, but by creating this little structure of call and response between the licks and kind of laying them out in a particular order, you can have a little roadmap for your solo. And here we haven't even changed chords, right? We're still just on an E vamp, but we've created something that feels musical and feels structured, and there are even tunes that are that are built all on one chord, these Howlin' Wolf tunes and Lightning Hopkins things or whatever. So it's a cool thing to be able to create some shape and some order out of a simple vamp. So that's the kind of thing we'll be covering this weekend, but also just this is something you can take and work on regardless. And so hope you have fun taking these licks and trying to move them around or coming up with your own and putting them into that kind of shape and that kind of format. So if you've got any questions or comments about today's lessons, you can leave them down below. I would love to hear from you. And as ever, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.